A wealthy family struggles with a quiet daughter who hasn't spoken a word in years. One day, the devoted nanny does something no one expected and, suddenly, the daughter starts singing. What happens next shocks everyone in the household and changes their lives forever. The mansion loomed like a silent giant under the early morning sun, its grand pillars and marble floors gleaming with a polished perfection that mirrored the strict order of the family living within. Every corner spoke of wealth, from the crystal chandeliers that caught the light like frozen stars to the intricately carved furniture that seemed more art than function. Yet, for all its beauty, the house felt cold, as if the walls themselves absorbed the quiet unease that lingered in every room. In the heart of this opulent space sat a young girl. Perched on a velvet armchair by the window, her small hands folded neatly in her lap, her wide eyes staring blankly at the garden beyond. She did not speak, she did not laugh, she simply existed. A silent presence amid a household bustling with activity but weighed down by tension. Staff moved with precise efficiency, tending to every task with the mechanical grace of people trained to maintain appearances. But their eyes often flicked toward the girl, betraying worry, frustration, and an almost helpless longing for her to respond. Even the parents, immaculately dressed and exuding an air of authority, seemed unsettled. Their polished smiles never quite reaching the worry lines etched faintly around their eyes. Each time they glanced at her, a flicker of hope mingled with unease. Why would their daughter not speak? Why would she retreat so completely into herself, ignoring the laughter of relatives, the gentle coaxing of tutors, the careful attention of her caregivers? They whispered to each other in hushed tones, questions punctuated by sighs, each wondering if they had somehow failed her, or if the world itself had left her behind. Visitors and extended family, when they came, were even less sure what to do. Some offered forced smiles and awkward compliments about her beauty, her posture, her intelligence, while secretly staring at the silent child as though her lack of words were a scandal. Others whispered among themselves, pity dripping from every syllable, as though her silence marked some irreparable flaw. Social expectations loomed over every gathering, adding weight to every glance and gesture, and yet the girl remained unchanged. Observing the world with eyes that seemed far older than her years, a quiet witness to the anxious chaos around her. Among all the figures moving through the mansion, one stood apart. The nanny, a composed and serene presence, moved with quiet confidence, her steps soft on the marble, her hands never idle, but her gestures never demanding. She had lived within these walls long enough to know that patience was her only weapon. Her eyes often rested on the girl with warmth, understanding, and an unwavering calm that contrasted sharply with the nervous energy of the rest of the household. Where others saw silence as defiance or weakness, the nanny saw a mind waiting to bloom, a spirit quietly observing before it dared to emerge. Her approach was subtle, almost imperceptible. She would leave a small sketchbook beside the girl, filled with soft pencil drawings of animals and flowers, hoping curiosity might tempt her to look, to respond. She would hum tunes under her breath, melodies light and airy, delicate as a breeze, to see if the girl might hum along. She read stories aloud in gentle voices, weaving worlds full of color and wonder. Never pressing, never demanding, allowing the girl the space to participate if and when she chose. Days passed in a rhythm of quiet persistence. The nanny's patience never faltered, and slowly, imperceptibly, small signs began to appear. At first, it was a faint glance toward the sketchbook, a small fingertip tracing a line she had drawn. Then, a soft smile that flickered for just a moment when the nanny hummed a particularly sweet tune. Sometimes, when a melody drifted through the air from the piano in the corner of the drawing room, the girl would lift her lips ever so slightly. A sound almost like a whisper of a hum quickly swallowed back into silence. These moments, fleeting as they were, brought a flicker of hope to the nanny, who recognized them as the beginnings of a connection. The first signs of a door slowly opening within a locked room. The rest of the household remained largely oblivious. Parents continued their anxious discussions with doctors and tutors, hoping that professional intervention would somehow coax the child into speech. Tutors tried structured lessons, repetition, gentle persuasion, all met with polite yet absolute refusal. Relatives remarked on the girl's beauty, her composure, but never considered that beneath the silent exterior a torrent of emotion and thought might be waiting to emerge. The nanny, however, watched with a knowing patience. She understood that silence did not indicate emptiness, only caution. A shield built not out of stubbornness, but perhaps out of a fear of being misunderstood. She moved with purpose, but never with haste, aware that the slightest pressure could shatter the fragile trust she had begun to build. She introduced music in new ways, softly tapping rhythms on the arm of a chair, lightly striking keys on a piano, inviting the girl to feel sound rather than forcing her to create it. She left out colored pencils and paper, not insisting that the girl draw, only suggesting that beauty could be explored without words. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the child began to respond. Her fingers lingered on a pencil, tracing shapes she could not yet name aloud. Her eyes followed the nanny's hands across a piano keyboard, memorizing movements even if she could not yet replicate them. The humming became slightly more audible, a thread of sound that hinted at hidden talent, a seed of expression waiting to grow. The household might have missed these signs if they had not been filtered through the nanny's careful attention. She noted every twitch of the lips, every lingering glance, every soft inhale that carried the faintest trace of melody. In her mind, she began to weave a plan, imagining ways to nurture this emerging voice, to help the girl claim it without fear or shame. Outside, the world continued with its noise, but within the mansion, there was a rhythm, all its own, a quiet tension, an unspoken promise. Something was coming, something that would change the household forever. The girl's silence was not a wall, but a doorway, and the nanny held the key. Each day, each small interaction moved her closer to that moment when the world would finally hear the voice that had been hidden for so long. As the sun slanted through the windows, casting long shadows across the polished floors, the girl sat in her chair, her hands still folded, her eyes wide but watchful. A soft melody drifted from the piano, a note lingering in the air like a question. The girl's lips twitched, a quiet hum escaping, almost imperceptible, yet undeniable. The nanny paused, her heart steady, but her mind alight with hope. First time in years, the stillness felt charged with possibility. Somewhere deep inside, the girl's voice stirred, a promise waiting to be fulfilled. And for the first time, everyone who observed her could feel it, the inevitability of a breakthrough, a moment that would change everything. The mansion, vast and imposing, seemed to hold its breath, as if even the walls understood that silence was about to transform into song. The morning light streamed through the tall windows, illuminating the grand halls and polished floors of the mansion with a soft golden glow. Outside, the garden bloomed in immaculate rows, testament to the household's wealth and meticulous attention to detail. But inside, the air carried a quiet tension. It was a typical day structured to perfection. Parents moved through their routines with practiced precision, one slipping into a suit for meetings, while the other attended a video conference with distant relatives and social acquaintances. Their schedules were packed with responsibilities. Yet even in their busyness, their thoughts repeatedly returned to the silent girl in the corner of the drawing room. Tutors came and went, offering lessons in languages, music, and etiquette, all met with polite but absolute silence. Visitors arrived for tea, their expressions a mix of curiosity and pity, exchanging whispered comments about the child's quiet demeanor. Amid this carefully orchestrated chaos, the nanny moved like a steady current, calm and composed, observing each movement, each glance, and each missed opportunity to engage the girl. Today, however, felt different. There was a certain stillness in the way the sunlight fell, a gentle hush in the mansion that seemed to hint at possibility. The nanny had prepared a small piano, leaving it open in the corner, the keys glinting softly, an invitation rather than a demand. A sheet of music lay ready, simple and unassuming, notes spaced widely across the page, designed to ease the girl into participation. Nearby, a small stool waited, though it would remain empty until the girl felt safe enough to take it. The nanny approached quietly, her hands empty, her voice soft as she began to hum a gentle melody. It was familiar, tender, not loud or imposing, designed to drift into the room like a whisper. She sang slowly, almost experimentally, leaving space for the girl to respond if she chose. The melody danced across the polished floors, lingering in the corners of the grand hall. And for a moment, the world seemed to pause. The girl's eyes, wide and observant, followed the movement of the nanny's lips and hands. Her small fingers twitched against the fabric of her dress, as if testing the air, testing herself. She did not speak. She did not hum at first. But her eyes carried the hint of curiosity, the faintest spark of recognition. Encouraged, the nanny continued, introducing subtle variations, gentle pauses, and soft encouragement. She never rushed, never demanded. She simply existed as a patient guide, a steady presence, letting the girl decide when and how to engage. Minutes passed, the mansion's usual clamor reduced to the distant hum of servants and the rustle of silk gowns in corridors. Then, without warning, the girl's lips parted, and a sound emerged, soft, barely audible at first. A whisper of a note that seemed to float on the air. The nanny paused, her hands hovering over the keys, her eyes steady, but her heart quickening. The note wavered, uncertain, but it was unmistakably hers. She tried again, slightly louder this time, the timbre richer, clearer, delicate yet confident in its vulnerability. Slowly, carefully, the melody that had once been the nanny's alone began to emerge from the girl, weaving into the room with a clarity that made even the walls seem to lean closer. The nanny's face lit with quiet joy, though she remained composed, knowing the moment needed space to grow. She hummed alongside the girl, matching her pitch and rhythm, providing a gentle scaffold for confidence. The voice grew stronger with each note, soft but steady, each sound a revelation, a bridge between years of silence and the world around her. The mansion, usually so controlled and predictable, seemed to hold its breath, as if aware of the miracle unfolding within its walls. Elsewhere, parents and household members were drawn to the sound, stopping in their tracks, their routines abruptly halted. The mother, mid-conversation on a video call, turned pale, eyes widening in disbelief. The father, adjusting his cufflinks, froze, jaw slack, unable to comprehend that the soft, sweet notes now filling the air came from the daughter they had thought incapable of speech or song. Relatives lingering in the drawing room gasped quietly, their faces a mix of astonishment and shame, realizing the assumptions they had made about the child's silence. Emotions collided, joy, disbelief, a flicker of guilt for doubting, and a deep, overwhelming wonder at the unexpected brilliance they were hearing. The daughter, meanwhile, experienced a torrent of feelings within her small frame. Fear mingled with exhilaration, hesitation, brushing against the thrill of discovery. Her mind raced with questions. Was it acceptable to make this sound? Would the adults praise her or scold her? Yet the nanny's presence acted as a calming force, a steady reminder that she was safe, that her voice was hers to claim. Each note strengthened her resolve, each melodic rise infusing her with courage. The melody became her own, intertwined with her spirit, a declaration that she was not to be ignored, not to be silenced. As the song continued, the nanny watched, her pride muted but profound. She did not interrupt, did not intrude, allowing the daughter to explore her own capabilities fully. She knew that forcing applause or reaction would disrupt the fragile confidence building inside the child. Instead, she hummed softly alongside, providing an invisible safety net that allowed the girl to soar without fear. When the final note lingered, the room was enveloped in a stunned silence, the weight of the moment settling like a gentle cloud. The daughter's lips parted, and she allowed herself a small, victorious smile, eyes shining with newfound pride and self-recognition. The household remained frozen, caught between the shock of hearing the voice that had been silenced for so long and the awe of witnessing an unguarded soul finally emerge. parents exchanged glances, the mother's hand trembling slightly as she clutched her teacup. The father's expression a mixture of pride and regret. Visitors, unable to contain themselves, whispered hurriedly, murmurs of astonishment passing from one to another. For the daughter, the moment was transformative. The fear that had tethered her to silence loosened, replaced by a tentative confidence, a realization that she could express herself, and that the world could respond with wonder rather than judgment. The nanny, smiling softly, knelt beside her, offering quiet affirmation, a touch on the hand that conveyed understanding, pride, and unconditional support. The mansion itself seemed to shift in response. Its grand halls, once echoing with silent tension and the strict rhythms of wealth, now carried the warmth of sound, of expression, of hope. The household had witnessed more than just a girl singing. They had witnessed the awakening of a spirit, the birth of courage, the undeniable proof that patience, empathy, and love could unlock doors no wealth, no pressure, and no expectation could force open. In the quiet aftermath, the girls' gaze met the nanny's, an unspoken bond forming, a shared acknowledgement that this was only the beginning. The melody had become more than a song, it was a declaration of presence, a promise of future expression, and a quiet revolution within the walls of the mansion that would resonate far beyond this single miraculous day. The mansion, once a quiet Stage 4, tentative melodies began to hum with a new energy. The daughter's voice, once hidden behind years of silence, now wove softly through the halls, leaving traces of sound that unsettled as much as they enchanted. Family members who had once felt secure in their control now shifted uneasily, sensing that the quiet bond between the nanny and the girl had changed the rules of the household. Whispers of jealousy and suspicion circulated like a slow current beneath the polished surfaces of the drawing rooms. Some relatives, accustomed to strict authority in the rigid hierarchy of the family, bristled at the nanny's influence. They questioned why she, an employee and an outsider, seemed to hold such sway over the child's heart and mind. Why her quiet guidance had unlocked a brilliance they had failed to ignite despite their status and wealth. The parents, though, initially elated at hearing their daughter's voice for the first time, noticed the subtle glances, the tense smiles, the quiet undermining that lingered behind polite conversation. Yet the nanny remained undeterred, moving with grace and calm, never engaging in conflict, simply continuing her gentle encouragement, allowing the child to explore her voice on her own terms. Each interaction with the daughter deepened their bond. The girl grew bolder, experimenting with scales and notes, humming softly while the nanny accompanied her with delicate piano chords. In these private moments, the mansion felt alive in a new way, infused with the warmth of connection, creativity, and trust. The girl's confidence grew steadily, and soon she began to sing for small, select gatherings within the household, perhaps a close relative, a tutor, or a visiting friend. Each performance was cautious, hesitant at first, but each note carried more certainty, more pride, and more of her own personality. The family watched in awe as the child, once silent and observant, began to command attention with a gentle authority, her voice weaving emotion and clarity into every note. Word of the daughter's newfound gift could not stay contained. A family friend visiting for a casual afternoon tea remarked on the astonishing talent, sharing the news with others who quickly spread it through whispered conversations and social media posts. Photos of the young girl at the piano caught mid-hum or mid-note appeared online, attracting comments from distant acquaintances and strangers alike. Soon, the household found itself under a new kind of scrutiny. Faced with the expectations of an audience they had never imagined, relatives once preoccupied with social appearances and financial standing now grappled with the consequences of underestimating the child. A sense of pride mingled with pressure as they realized that the girl's abilities were no longer private, and her talent demanded acknowledgement and respect. The parents, particularly, began a period of introspection. They reflected on the years of worry and effort, on the tutor's tests, and structured routines they had imposed, wondering why they had failed to see the potential that the nanny had quietly nurtured. They recognized, with a mixture of shame and relief, that their daughter's silence had never been stubbornness or deficiency. It had been a shield, a space to grow safely, and only patience and empathy could have unlocked her brilliance. Daughter herself continued to evolve, each day pushing the boundaries of her voice, exploring dynamics, pitch, and emotion. She experimented with melodies, sometimes softly in the drawing room, sometimes in the garden where the wind carried her notes into open air. Her small performances became a ritual, private celebration of self-expression that no longer relied solely on the nanny's guidance, but was enriched by it. The relationship between child and caretaker deepened into a profound, unspoken understanding. The nanny became both mentor and companion, a presence whose guidance allowed the girl to navigate not just music, but emotion, fear, and confidence. Each shared glance, each subtle encouragement, strengthened the trust that formed the foundation of her growth. Meanwhile, the subtle tension in the household did not dissipate. Some relatives openly questioned why the nanny received such deference, why the girl's voice seemed to respond only to her presence. Comments framed as concern hid envy. Polite questions masked judgment, yet the parents, slowly recognizing the power of patience and nurturing, began to shield the child from these undercurrents. Choosing empathy over authority, understanding over tradition, the mansion, once dominated by rigid expectations and careful appearances, began to shift. Rooms that had felt cold and formal now carried a lingering warmth. Music echoed through hallways and staircases, turning polished marble floors into instruments that resonated with sound and emotion. Servants paused in their work to listen. Tutors watched silently as the girl experimented, and even the previously skeptical relatives found themselves quietly captivated. As the child's confidence blossomed, the household began to anticipate. What was next? A family event loomed on the calendar, a gathering of close friends, distant relatives, and associates. The daughter's parents, now fully aware of her abilities, decided she should perform in acknowledgement of both talent and trust. The girl, naturally hesitant, grappled with nervous excitement, feeling the weight of expectation for the first time. She glanced at the nanny, who gave a subtle nod, a reminder that she was not alone, that support and understanding were still at her side. The preparation for this performance was careful. The nanny encouraged private rehearsals, offering advice only when requested, correcting gently, and celebrating every success. The daughter's voice gained strength, clarity, and emotion, each day refining her control and expressive range. The parents observed quietly, proud but cautious, aware of the delicate balance between encouragement and pressure. The household buzzed with anticipation, speculating about how the daughter would perform, unsure whether the confidence she displayed in private would hold in a more public setting. This anticipation added tension, subtle and pervasive, yet it also infused the mansion with life. The child, sensing the scrutiny, yet buoyed by the nanny's presence, began to understand that her voice was not only a gift, but a bridge connecting her inner world to those around her, allowing emotions that words alone had failed to express. In this environment, the mansion became a microcosm of growth, conflict, and transformation. The girl's voice had not only revealed hidden talent, but had also exposed the cracks in familial dynamics. The jealousy, the underestimation, and the missed opportunities for understanding. It highlighted the transformative power of empathy, patience, and love, challenging authority, tradition, and expectation. The upcoming event promised a climax, a stage on which the daughter's voice would meet a wider audience, and where the household's journey of adaptation, acceptance, and recognition would converge. The child, once silent, now carried her melody with pride. Her confidence a testament to nurturing care, quiet patience, and self-discovery. The mansion waited, its halls echoing with expectation and possibility, a silent witness to the unfolding story of courage, talent, and the bonds that had quietly reshaped a family from within. Every note she would sing in the days to come promised not only to reveal her talent, but to challenge assumptions, melt old tensions, and leave an indelible mark on everyone who listened. The stage was set, the tension mounting, and the child, guided by the steady hand and unwavering heart of the nanny, was poised to step into a world that had long misunderstood her. Ready to let her voice shine for the first time, for those who would truly understand its brilliance? The day of the performance arrived with an energy that felt almost electric. A quiet tension weaving through the mansion like a current carrying, with it anticipation, hope, and a touch of fear. The drawing room, usually a space of controlled calm, had been transformed into a miniature stage, adorned with flowers, soft lighting, and a small audience of relatives, close family friends, and tutors who had quietly followed the girl's journey. The parents stood to the side, their expressions a mixture of pride, nervousness, and awe, their previous anxieties now mingled with the weight of expectation. The girl entered the room small but poised, her posture straight, eyes bright yet reflective, carrying the weight of her own courage alongside the careful guidance of the nanny, who followed silently, a steady shadow of encouragement. She approached the piano, her fingers hovering over the keys, and for a brief moment, time seemed to slow. Every eye in the room was on her, every breath held in suspense, and yet she did not waver. The melody began softly, tentative at first, a whisper that gently touched the walls and echoed into the hearts of the listeners. The notes carried the years of silence, the patience of the nanny, and the courage she had painstakingly built within herself. She continued. The song grew, each note more confident, more expressive. A clear testament to the voice that had waited so long to be heard. Faces in the audience reflected the emotional journey of the past months. Parents' eyes glistened with tears. Relatives leaned forward in astonishment, and even the most skeptical observers were struck silent, captivated by the purity, control, and emotion that flowed effortlessly from the young singer. The performance was not merely a demonstration of talent. It was a revelation, a declaration that the child, once silent and withdrawn, now owned her voice, her spirit, and her presence. As the final note lingered, echoing like a gentle sigh through the room, the audience erupted in quiet applause, not raucous but heartfelt, every hand raised in admiration and acknowledgement. The girl's lips curved into a small smile, her eyes scanning the room until they found the nanny's. In that glance, a universe of gratitude and trust passed between them. It was understood without words that this moment, this triumph, was the result not only of her courage, but of the unwavering support and love that had been offered so patiently, so steadfastly. The parents, humbled, approached the nanny there, hands trembling slightly as they offered thanks that words could barely capture. They acknowledged with a mixture of relief and deep respect the role she had played in unlocking their daughter's voice, recognizing that it was her patience, empathy, and dedication that had allowed this transformation to occur. Relatives who had expressed skepticism or subtle criticism could not ignore the truth. The nanny's presence had been vital, a quiet force of care that had guided the child through fear, hesitation, and uncertainty to a place of confidence and expression. Gratitude filled the room, not only toward the nanny, but toward the process itself, the recognition that understanding, patience, and gentle encouragement could achieve what authority and pressure never could. The household dynamics began to shift in subtle but profound ways. The parents, inspired by this experience, treated the daughter with renewed warmth and respect, balancing guidance with empathy. Relatives and tutors, once focused on achievement and control, learned to step back, offering space and encouragement rather than judgment or expectation. The mansion, which had once felt imposing and cold, now resonated with harmony, laughter, and the gentle rhythm of a family learning to grow together. The daughter's confidence continued to blossom. She experimented with songs, melodies, and harmonies, sometimes performing for the family alone, sometimes for small gatherings, each time gaining strength and expression. Her bond with the nanny deepened further, becoming one of mutual trust, understanding, and love that transcended the formal boundaries of employer and caretaker. In quiet moments, they would sit together in the drawing room or garden, the girl singing softly while the nanny listened, offering encouragement or subtle guidance. One evening, as the mansion settled into a calm hush, the daughter approached the piano in the dim glow of the setting sun, the audience of relatives absent. The world narrowed to only her and the nanny. She began to sing, her voice carrying the familiar melody, gentle yet full of emotion, each note a declaration of trust and affection. The nanny watched, heart full, silently offering her presence as a foundation for the girl's continued growth. The parents, observing from a distance, allowed themselves to quietly witness the bond that had brought their daughter to this place. Tears filled their eyes as they realized that the most valuable lessons were not found in schedules, tutors, or social expectation, but in patience, love, the willingness to nurture a hidden voice until it could speak for itself. The song ended, leaving the room wrapped in a silence that was no longer heavy, but luminous, charged with emotion and the unspoken connection between the child and her guide. In that moment, everything the household had endured, the tension, doubt, worry, and subtle conflicts, faded, placed by understanding, gratitude, and joy. The daughter turned toward the nanny, a small smile of pure recognition and affection crossing her face, and the nanny reached out, brushing a strand of hair from the girl's forehead, a silent affirmation of their journey together. The parents, humbled, allowed themselves to join the quiet celebration, their hearts full with pride not only for the talent they had witnessed, but for the growth, resilience, and trust that had brought it forth. The mansion, once a stage of silent expectation and rigid control, had transformed into a space of warmth, understanding, and love, where voices could rise, hearts could connect, and patience could yield extraordinary results. It was clear that this was only the beginning. For the daughter, her voice, once hidden, would continue to flourish, guided by the lessons learned and the bond she had cultivated. The household, too, had changed irrevocably, each member carrying a newfound respect for the power of empathy, patience, and quiet guidance. The girl's final glance at the nanny spoke volumes, a simple acknowledgement that even the most silent hearts could be transformed by love and understanding. And as the sun set behind the mansion, casting long, gentle shadows across the polished floors, the melody lingered in the air like a promise, a reminder that true connection could unlock hidden potential, that patience could overcome fear, and that even in silence, extraordinary beauty could emerge. The audience, though silent in the private moment, felt the weight of this transformation, the daughter's voice, the nanny's dedication, and the family's evolution, all interwoven into a story that would leave its mark forever. The mansion, the family, and the child herself had discovered something profound: the quiet power of empathy, the gentle strength of love, and the extraordinary capacity of a single voice, nurtured with patience, to change everything.